All right, so we wanted to talk today about buying our first home. So I'm hoping that we can have a conversation. Maybe I'll tell the story of our home buying journey. Mine was, I was 26 years old, and I made a lot of mistakes during my first home buying experience and did not know a lot, which led to other issues, which is why I was glad that Bryan joined, because you could point out what I could have done better.
All of our faults.
That's right. But so for me, I bought my first home when I was 26. I was working in a company full time, and halfway through the loan process, I quit my job and started a company. And
that probably went over well.
Yeah.
And then what was the job?
What
was your full-time job? Yeah.
I was working as a systems engineer.
Systems engineer.
Yep.
At 28, 26?
26.
Wow.
Yeah.
Overachiever.
I recently, well, I got out of the military when I was 24, and then started with a company down in Orange County, and left there. And when I left to go start my company, it was like we were having a baby, and I started a company. And it was to do.
You kept things simple.
Yeah.
Quit your job, have a child, probably move. Keep it simple.
So my real estate agent and my loan officer both had a heart attack immediately.
Did you know them, or were they some?
I knew the real estate agent.
Okay.
My loan officer's name was Gary Schwery.
All right.
Poor guy. Why do you not use Gary Schwery
Gary,
anymore?
if you're still out there in the industry,
Yeah.
we should hope you're doing well after your heart attack.
Gary was probably great.
I used him for my first two homes, but yeah, it was so they both had a heart attack, mainly because they were like, "Could you not wait until we finish this process?" Yeah. I had no idea that it would jeopardize my loan.
Usually, people accidentally buy a couch on credit, and they get that kind of trouble. But you quit your job.
I did. I quit my job, and I started a business. And they, of course, immediately the banks were like, "We need like 3 years of history."
Yeah.
As a 1099 or your own independent contractor status.
So had you even been approved by then?
Well, pre-approval.
Just pre-approval. Okay.
Yeah. Pre-approval.
So you knew what you could buy.
I knew what I could buy. I think we got approved. We did get approved for the loan. It was a very long time ago. I think we got it. So we did get approved for the loan.
So was it just a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
It feels like it.
Yeah. Okay.
In here.
All right.
And so I think we were approved, but every few weeks or something, or every month, you have to give your pay stubs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's when I had to give my pay stubs the next time, and they realized that I no longer was a W-2.
You couldn't just tell them, I don't feel like giving you this month.
I was like, here are all my contracts. I've got all of these contracts, which is guaranteed. They're guaranteeing me money. What's the problem? And that did not go over well. So what ended up happening was they split the loan into two different loans. The first
and a second, or
it was a first and a second.
Okay.
The first was at 6% interest, and the second was like at 12% interest. It was super high. And
so you started out that way.
So you have to do like the 80-10-10, like 20% down, but 10 of it was through the second lien type deal.
And I had zero down.
Oh.
I was on a VA.
That's right. You were military.
Yep.
That's
I
right.
had a VA
so
loan.
VA.
Yep.
So you had 100% financing on it.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, really setting yourself up for success.
And I had nobody to give me like any pointers or guidance or anything.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I were just doing this. We're like, it's time for us to buy a house. We're going to do this.
How'd you find out about your military benefits? Like, there's a ton of people that have no idea that VA offers that type of stuff.
When I was leaving the military, they had a whole program like as I was exiting,
Okay.
and which introduced me to
These
that.
are all the things
Yeah.
that you get for having
And that was the
served.
one thing I held on to. My dad did tell me, he's like, always get your VA loan. And so I did.
If you're in VA, do you still have to, and it's 100% financed, do you still have to pay the private mortgage insurance? Or, yeah,
Yes.
you did.
Okay.
So you had that?
Mhm.
And then did you know that once you got to that 20% equity that you would go away?
No, I did
Okay.
not know that.
Oh, yeah, because you didn't even know that you
Right.
could refinance at all.
Right. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story that we can dig into in the mistakes. But I had no idea. So I had this business that we started. This is going to be all Mike's failings in life.
I know it's going to be Brian's turn, and he's like, "Well, I was 17, and I had 20% down, but I had to wait till I was 18 because I had."
So this business that we started, I had never been in business for myself, and so but I did have all of these customers, and I started buying their computer equipment for them as the business, and then invoicing them for
So
their
you're buying it
equipment.
on your credit.
I was buying it on my credit,
Mm.
which racked up all my credit cards, and then they were taking 90 days to pay, which totally messed me
Wow.
up.
So you're floating all their inventory.
I was totally
Wow.
yeah, and I kept getting more and more clients, and so this just started building up to the point where we were having trouble like making our payments, and I had no idea what to do. And so I was talking to my wife. I was like, we have all this equity in our house, and we have to like pay this stuff off. Like, how do we get to it? And we had no idea how to get to the equity in our home. And so we didn't realize that you could get a second, or you could refinance, or you could do something to pull equity out. So I sold my house.
Just straight up sold.
Yeah.
Straight up sold the house, grabbed the equity, paid it off, put it down on another house, and then by that time I had enough history with the business that
You
we
can pay
were,
your clients'
yeah,
bills. Their inventory bills.
Yeah.
but
Wow.
it was.
Well, it sounds like it worked out though.
It did end up working out, but I wish I
Did
would.
you like the second house better?
I did like the second house.
There you go.
It's a good trade. It's not
The
bad.
first house was nice and small and quaint, but
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, yeah. I mean, that's my first home.
Mine, I was similar age. I was 28. I was working for a company, and I had been for a while W-2, so I didn't have to deal with that, thankfully. But I banked at Wells, and so I figured they would know me, and so they're going to give me a loan. And they must, because I have a checking account. I thought that was enough. And little did I know, like, having $500 in your checking account doesn't really matter to them. So we did save up enough money for an FHA loan, enough to be able to put like the 3.5% down. Yeah. But otherwise, I think my first experience was so nerve-wracking because I spent the entire time thinking about whether or not I would be able to afford it.
How did you know about 3% though? Like everybody talks about 20%. Like you're sitting around like, how the hell am I going to get to 20%
Right.
down when I?
My father-in-law told me.
Okay.
He just, in passing, and I was like, wait, what? That's a thing? And then the other part of that same time, I was living in Temecula, working in almost East LA, so it was a very long commute. And I was working with my wife, talking about maybe we can move to Orange County. I've got some stepkids that need to be here part of the time. And so I was going to show her one day where we would be, like what the drive would be like. And then we were going to go to Ladera Ranch because thankfully it was in a time when prices were a lot lower and I could afford a shoebox in Ladera Ranch.
What year was this?
2010. So I could afford this tiny little place on Ladera Ranch, and we're driving over Highway 74. And my wife gets really car sick. She literally, on our way out there, where I'm trying to get her all excited, like, we're going to be able to do this commute thing. It's going to be okay. She throws up. And so I was like, well, we looked at one house and we just went back. I was like, this is never going to happen. So and then even though prices were so down because of the 2008 stuff, the area where I did want to live in Temecula was like super sought after. And so we were putting, thankfully my realtor was close friend. Actually, it was my aunt. So,
You didn't
Oh,
have a heart attack.
yeah, no heart attacks, thankfully. Which she still does everything. I'd still do everything with her today. So she coached me a little bit. So I did have like a person coaching me along with the process.
Oh, that's
Thankfully.
nice.
Yeah, it helped out a lot. But I remember just thinking, like, we come from really blue collar. I remember my parents, they were entrepreneurs, so they had a hard time getting loans at a time. All I cared about was getting it, you know. When they told me the interest rate, the one thing that I was thinking about is I never even dreamed of the idea of like maybe I could get a better deal somewhere else. So I just wanted to be invited, you know.
So you didn't shop it.
No, I did not shop it.
Did you end up doing it with Wells?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Somehow, the rate was not great, but it was good enough for the time.
Was it better than 6% and 12%?
It was better than 6% and 12%, but I did have to pay the mortgage insurance.
Oh,
Okay.
And so that was a couple $100 a month. And I was already like right at that. That's when I learned about the concept of debt to income. I had no idea about that idea and like what the basic thresholds were and all that stuff. And so I had a small student loan and I wouldn't have been able to qualify if I still had the student loan. So we had to like work towards paying off the student loan so that I could just show that I only had so much in monthly payments. Because we barely made it.
What about property taxes and insurance? That was the thing that the first time I ever got a mortgage, I'm like, wait, what? There's property tax? Okay, I
And
got
it's
property
huge.
taxes and insurance.
and insurance.
And like I can put it in the loan or not put it in. I'm like, I don't know what to do. What do you do here?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I definitely put it into the loan because I was like, there's no way I can trust myself.
97%, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
I thought the same thing. Like, so our mortgage payment is this, and now you're adding all of this
Yeah.
other stuff onto it.
It's like going to the car
Yeah.
dealership. Like, I don't need the undercoating. I'm good. Like, I don't need the seat protection. I just want to
Yes.
have this payment.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you actually have to do this.
Are you guys in? Were you in fire areas or anything where you had to pay extra insurance for the fire?
Fortunately, no, but now, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that
Same.
confused me, and Melrose
Oh,
confused.
and HOAs.
Yeah. And
Well,
HOAs. That's.
I still don't get Melrose.
It's another way to get taxed.
Exactly. Like,
Because they
I
have
feel like
tax you down.
it's like something else. Like
You got to pay
it's
for
like-
the curbs being put in somewhere.
right. Yeah.
But you totally don't ever. Yeah. First home buyers never probably have ever heard of it.
No, there's foreign terms everywhere.
Yeah.
You just think somebody's trying to take more money from you. It's because you're ignorant to it.
Yep.
Yeah. It was.
How long
Definitely
was your
scary.
first house that you stayed there?
I'm in it.
Still.
Still.
All right.
Yep.
Oh,
So how many times have you refinanced your home?
that's great.
Once
Okay.
because when rates went super low, I got a great rate. And
So like over the last 2 years?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Before
Yeah.
COVID sort of ended?
That's right. Around 2 years ago, and I've also gotten a home equity line of credit for rainy days.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good discussion.
Yeah.
Home equity line of credits.
It's great.
Yeah, people have tons of equity in their
Yeah.
homes. Like home prices haven't necessarily gone down, and so everybody, you get it set up. Like a lot of banks won't do it now and that sort of stuff. But
Mhm.
if you can and get it set up, it's perfect. Like it's that
Yeah.
rainy day fund, so you don't have to sell your home. to
Yeah.
put some equity in.
Man, I wish I could get to
I
that
wish
money.
I would have known. Yeah. So you would recommend a home equity line of credit?
If it depends on the usage, but like as a home equity line of credit, like if you've got a ton of equity in there and your kids potentially going to college, you got to figure out a way to do that. It's going to be a relatively easy way to do that and pull out of it. Like if it's cheaper than finding a auto loan right now because it's super expensive on that side, like you take equity at home, pay for the auto loan and not have the debt and wait for prices or interest rates to go down and then potentially go get an auto loan. Like it's just a ton of flexibility, but it's a bit of a unicorn sometimes. Like there's a lot of people that were in that space obviously before the financial crisis, and now it's it's kind of hard to find. So if like you're Wells Fargo, if you're not doing multiple different things with that bank, they may not be interested in giving you a home equity loan. Like you
Right.
probably have to have your first at whatever bank it is for them to feel comfortable, because like then there's a fight over if there's a really bad scenario. Like you got to sell your home and you sell it for underwater at that point in time. Now those two guys are fighting with each other. So it's not all puppy dogs and rainbows for that sort of stuff, but like done correctly, it's a good thing.
So I've done a home equity line of credit, and the way it almost worked like a credit card for my house.
Yep.
Like I would be able to, I could charge against the equity in my home and I could pay it back, and then that money becomes available again. Is that generally how it's worked with you guys?
Yeah, we've used it if we needed it. Tried not to though. I haven't really used it a lot. It was offered to us through, now we've been banking with a credit union for a long time.
More of a safety net.
Yeah. So they offered it to us and we took it.
Yeah, we did it on our last house. We were thinking about remodeling, and so we just said, the guy, when we did our first loan, he said we could just go ahead and add it on there. And so it was a relatively simple process at that point in time to go do it, because you're already going through the mortgage process when we were purchasing the home, so it was easy to do.
That's nice. Yeah. Hopefully I don't have to use it.
Well, that's always the hope. Things
You never
just
know.
buy a bunch of inventory.
Right.
Then you're good.
Yeah. So how about you, Bryan?
So we bought our first home in, it was 2003. Newly married, or about to be married, and so we bought the home, and it was a condo in Costa Mesa, California. So just killer place that we loved and all that sort of stuff. And I was fortunate enough to have a buddy that was in the mortgage space. So he was a mortgage broker. He was my best friend growing up since like first grade. And I call him up and I was like, I don't really know anything about mortgages at this point in time other than I can't afford a home without one. So what do I do?
Yeah.
And I call him up and they take a bunch of information. And the mortgage broker process back then was like, they just shot it out to everybody. And it ended up being, I think it was Union Bank of California that came back with a loan for us. And I ended up having, and it was an 80-10-10 loan. So we did that same sort of program. I put 10% down. I had a 10% second lien, and I had a 80% first lien on that. And like I remember telling my parents that I got a 6 1/8 rate back in 2003, and my dad was like, "That's insane." It was like 15% in 1983 or whatever it is, and now it's coming full circle. Everybody's sitting around like, "Oh, it's 6.5-7% for a mortgage right now. That's ridiculous." It's like it's kind of right back where it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
on that side. But we did not give a heart attack to either our real estate agent or our mortgage broker. My mortgage broker friend is no longer in that industry and does some nice things in real estate at this point in time. But and we just had the thing that I think in the first time home buying process, like the real estate agent actually matters. And we had a really crappy one that sold us the house that we had. He wasn't a bad guy, but like we didn't know what questions to ask. And I like as a real estate agent, you're looking across the table and we probably look like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know what to ask. My wife doesn't know what to ask. And there's so many things you learn, like if you sell your home and move to the next one, like, oh, I should have asked for this. Like, why is that ceiling have no popcorn on it, but the rest of them do? Oh, that's nice. They clean that up. No, there was some issue that probably didn't get disclosed to you.
So now, what's the first thing when you're walking in a house that you're prospecting, you're looking for a new place? What's the first thing you're looking at?
I look around the house for problems. Like, you're making a huge purchase. Like it's the same thing as buying a car. Like you're buying a used car, you're looking up and you're looking for every scratch and dent or something wrong with the wheels because somebody off-roaded and said they never did or anything like that. So you're constantly looking for those sort of things, and if you don't find them, and then you just ask the questions, like it's skepticism and all of it. But
yeah, for sure. I think for us the thing that we look at now is we also have been sold by a real estate agent on all you have to do is this, and that'll make it the home that you want. Like, the kitchen doesn't have it doesn't have the cabinets you want, or it doesn't have like the countertop you want. All you got to do is you can replace those things. That's easy. But it doesn't happen, or it's a bigger job than it ever is. I think that's like my biggest takeaway from the first couple of homes that we've owned is that every job is way bigger than
3 times as long and twice expensive. Twice expensive and 3 times as long.
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea how much stuff like that would cost.
Yeah.
Like remodeling a kitchen is a fortune.
Yeah, and you always run into another problem.
Yep.
And
unless you're on those fix-it shows on TV where it's like, oh, we did their bathroom for $250.
And they're like working in and out, and their budget is, their budget's $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm an assistant manager at In and Out. My budget is $1 million. No problem. I've done so I've been in my house since 2010, and so we've done some like pretty serious remodeling, and it costs a lot of money. I would definitely prefer to just buy the house with it.
So did you guys do 30 years? Like, everybody tells you got to do a 30-year loan.
I did 30 years, yeah.
Do you still do 30 years?
I'd like to say no, but we did. We did mainly because we were also refinancing our. So one of the lessons that we tried to learn, and we always tried to do in our younger years, was an idea that we had was if we buy a house, we should keep it, move to another house, and then
rent
use
it
that
out,
as a rental.
Yeah.
Well, finally, we were at a place in our life where we could actually do that. So we were refinancing our first home, getting our second home, and we were comfortable with the 30-year. But I would say I don't know that I would recommend it.
So, you've been in your house for a little while now, so you haven't necessarily moved. But how many times have you moved?
4.
Okay, so over a 20-year period, you moved 4 times?
Yeah, since 2003. Yeah.
So it's one of these like little things that I didn't know until I was working at Loan Depot about ARMs and things like that. Like the average person stays in a home I think it's like 7.5 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And like you can do a 30-year loan and maybe more expensive than doing an ARM, and you stay in it and there's risks associated with it. Like you could, it does jack up if interest rates are up and that sort of stuff if you go to the other side. But like that was how we could afford more home. I was like, the likelihood I'm going to stay in it longer than this period of time. We have like a 7-year itch.
Yeah.
It seems like every 7 years we just sort of we get we talk about, we should fix this and everything else, and we start looking around and we're like, it's probably just easier to move than deal with a bunch of people doing construction and that sort of stuff. So I feel like if I had known that on my first home, and I don't know, maybe they don't give ARMs to knuckleheads that are 56 years old in their first time home, but if I had known that, I probably could have afforded more home, knowing that I probably wasn't going to stay in that home maybe
that's good
that
advice,
long.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that. I did a 30-year loan, and the same concept was, if you're going to stay there, and then move to the next house, just rent that one out. Like it's a great concept, but especially in California, it's a little expensive to do that.
Yeah. So I think when you're going through, or you're listening to a lot of guys like Dave Ramsey and some of the others that like financial coaches, they want to teach you to get everything paid off and to do even shorter mortgages so that you can get your mortgage paid off. What are your thoughts around, instead of doing that, do what you're suggesting and getting a longer loan so you can get more house, and using that investment to, instead of paying that off, you're using that investment to make more investments?
Yeah, look, they're obviously during the last, the COVID years, if you will, kind of even before that, interest rates were super low. So but there wasn't a huge arbitrage. Like you couldn't actually go out and invest in something else and know that it was going to do that. Like, if you've got a loan right now over the last few years and you're at 3.5%, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay it off if you can go put it in something else.
That's right.
Your money market account, like at your bank right now, they're fighting for deposits.
Yeah.
It's like 4.5%. Like you could actually make some money by not paying down the principal on it and that sort of stuff if you have that option. So like it hasn't really existed over the last 10 years since the financial crisis, but like it's starting to happen on that side.
Yeah.
I think also it's like how risk averse you are.
Yeah, for sure.
Like just personally, I still feel like I have enough time. My main source of income is my job. And so if I make a mistake, I still have time to recover for it or recover from it. And so that's why we like you, we worked a long time to get an investment property, and we did. And that would be my preference over, that's like right now in my life. If 20 years from now, I probably wouldn't want to do that, I wouldn't be I'd be a lot more risk averse.
Not working, you're probably,
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm not working. Here's hoping. That's a different conversation.
Because Lord knows there'll be a lot of social
You have
security
more
by the
faith
time
in Rick. You have more faith in Rick than he does.
I have faith in Rick.
But I don't know about you, but trying to buy a property when you have your primary home is a lot more difficult. And so what I found was, first of all, we had to save forever to get enough to actually have 20% down on a separate piece of property. And what I found was really helpful was like knowing my realtor and knowing my loan officer. It's a mortgage broker, but I just didn't feel like I could tell them anything. You know what I mean? And then we would find ways to work through stuff. And so they would, instead of just this this robotic system where I was either qualified or not, if we found something on DTI, we would go look at what my payments were and see if I needed to do something else to prepare. So that was like super helpful. And I've had that relationship for, I'd say, 5 years now because of the first time I refied.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And
with your
with my primer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, it's just like, okay, this is what I'm thinking I want to try and do. And then we just start working on it, and before I even try to go get pre-approved or anything, we start to going through the numbers and see if I'm going to qualify.
Like you have you just switched investment properties. Like you're selling one and you bought, what'd you do there? Like how did you go through that?
So that was because I had an investment property in the mountains, which we like the mountains, and but it's probably like a little too big for my britches in reality. And so we rent it through Airbnb and VRBO and stuff like that. But if it doesn't rent, then it's like a struggle for me to maintain the house and stuff. And so I just started to feel a little uncomfortable with, I think last year I had to pay the mortgage myself once, and I was like, dude, this sucks.
Better than the rental income.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had to come out of my own.
We're paying your mortgage, right? I just want to make sure.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just qualified. Always paying the mortgage, but the rental income was paying for it.
First line of advice.
Always pay your bills. Pay your mortgage.
We should have started with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we decided to try and find a smaller place that way, if it wasn't renting, it wouldn't be so strapped to cover it. And that was definitely one of those deals where we liked a couple of places that are small, but I wasn't, because the other property is bigger, it's going to take longer to sell. Mm-hmm. And so I just worked with my loan officer, and we figured out the right mix and the right loan, and we worked on paying off some car debt. And so the fact that we paid off the car debt put us in the right debt to income ratio so that we could actually qualify for that thing.
And still carry the other one until you sell it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's super helpful. Like, there's not many real estate agents, mortgage brokers that actually go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they make a lot of money off of us.
Yeah.
They do.
That's the thing. Do. Like, these guys are taking a big chunk, right? That was one of the things I learned.
Have you found that their percentage is negotiable?
On a real estate agent?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's still it's one of these commission businesses that hasn't seen its commission really cut too much. I think about, you used to buy stocks and things like that, and there was all sorts of commissions. This is zero now. You can go trade stocks, and it doesn't matter. Like
that's true. Yeah.
They've held pretty strong at their, call it 5 to 6%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're flipping though, if they helped you buy your new rental property and they're helping you sell the other one, you can generally get a better discount off of that.
Yeah, if they're on both sides.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. And then, sometimes we now use, a real estate agent that we work with a real estate agent who also has in-house lending, and so sometimes they'll give us breaks on that type of stuff too. But not much. Still, closing costs are unbelievable. That was one of the things that, like you mentioned, things like Melrose and HOAs, just the amount of money that is spent to close these deals is
title insurance,
title
warranty, and all of these.
The appraisal's $500.
Identity theft protection.
It should be.
It should be in there.
You're getting a home warranty that you're gonna fix your washer when it breaks down there. Yeah. But who the hell's protecting you if this whole mortgage process and you don't, somebody steals your identity, like everybody's pointing at each other, like no, somebody else is gonna take care of it. Just call on you.
Yeah. So, how about the closing process, or kind of the end of the loan process? Like, what was your experience there? You just got the home.
Other than excitement?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a funny story associated with my first home. Like I said, my aunt she's my realtor. She's still my realtor. She's a great realtor, and so
you want to give her any props here?
Yeah. M Coastal.
You should call. So
yeah, M Coastal. So she was working in her office in it was in Orange County, and she's like, okay, we got it. You can get the keys. And then there was an earthquake happening at the same time. And I could hear like things were shaking in her building, and she's in a high floor. People are leaving the building. And I said, Marge, it's okay. We can talk later. She's like, no. I want you to get the keys. And so she's like, she's like texting somebody trying to find out where the keys are, and so she can tell me how to get to them. They were like, the outdoor locks, your outdoor outlets, they have the weather stripping, so the weather cover. And so it was under one of those. And she's like, no, I got it. And I was like, get the hell out of there. And then she still got it. But it was super fun to get my keys. Like that was to me, it is done when you sign your documents and it funds, but I don't feel comfortable until I get the keys.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, I don't feel, it's not done to me.
There's nothing better than walking through that front door and like, there's nothing in the house. And you're like, okay,
so
it's
mine.
Yep.
This is cool.
This is mine. Yep. I'm going to see what we can do.
But up until that point, it is pain in the butt.
Yeah.
It's
stressful.
I used to always use this analogy as like, it's like going to the dentist. Nobody like recommends their dentist. It's sort of this thing you have to have done to make sure your teeth don't fall out. It's kind of the same thing in the mortgage world. Like you can make it a little bit easier, a little bit better. Those are things we tried to do at my old company, but like it's still a hard process. It's just you gotta like get into it and deal with it and make it out the other side. And it's hard. I mean, you're sitting there, the closing, like sometimes you can have them come to your house and do all the paperwork there at your house. Sometimes you go to the actual escrow company and sit there and you're filling out 800 pieces of paperwork and you have honestly no idea what you're signing.
No idea.
And so you're going through this whole process of like, did I just give away a child? Did I give an organ away? Like it's buried somewhere in the paperwork, of all this. And so that's pretty daunting, especially the first time. Like I guess if you bought a home a couple times, you're like, okay, this is just the process. But the first time you're like, I have no idea.
Yeah, what
is it? I mean, you're not reading the 800 pages. I'd love to say everybody does.
You have your notary sitting there going through it with you.
They tell you this is for this. This is for this.
You're checking.
Sign here.
Is my payment what they told me it was going to be?
That's right.
Am I paying the right price for this home? You're not even checking the interest rate.
It's one of the first times you see all of the fees.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, well, the closing disclosures, it's really long.
Yep.
And then also sometimes the paperwork that you need to provide to the lender is hard to get.
Yeah.
I had to, because I mentioned that on buying that first investment property, I had to prove that we had paid off a car. So I didn't have that on my debt to income anymore. And it was financed by a smaller credit union, and they weren't giving me the document, to the point where like I just couldn't get a hold of anybody, and it was just being such a pain. I finally had to, I searched the company on LinkedIn, and I looked up, I found an SVP, and I connected with him, and I said, hey, I'm not trying to throw stones or anything, but I could really use some help. And I can't get this proof to my lender, and we're supposed to close in like 2 days. Can you please help me? The guy helped me.
So it works on
that's
LinkedIn.
great.
That's pretty sweet. That's good customer service.
Yeah, he totally. He's like, hey, no. He said, I'm really sorry that's happened. No problem. I'll get you covered. Like half an hour later, had exactly what I needed. It was so cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was starting to get really nervous because I was like, this one document, like this is all it's going to take. And then in the previous one, this small condo, I mean, it's this bank of condos that's like, there's like 18 total. So it's a small little section of buildings. And so their HOA is a very small HOA. And they had to prove that they had a balance sheet that had enough money for improvements if needed.
Okay.
We couldn't get the documents. Like we could not, because the person who did the books before, they were gone. And now it's this one person who's on vacation. And man, it was a big challenge, and it was a big mortgage company. It's UWM who ended up taking the loan.
Oh, wow.
So they're like, there's no way in hell they were gonna approve the funding without that.
Yeah.
So that was getting a little dicey at the end too. But yeah, so I'm nervous till I get the keys.
You've got college age kids. Like,
I do.
Do you tell them any of this stuff? Do they do they ask? Do they even care?
Yeah, I have already sat them down and told them everything that I wish that I knew, and they should start preparing right now. You know, a zero down loan isn't the way to go. I mean, unless interest rates are also pretty low.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they need to start preparing and start asking questions and seeing what they want to do. I forget where I read it, but there is a big segment of the population that just doesn't want to buy either, and which was surprising to hear, because I've always learned that, or I've always been told, you know, property is not something that you can make more of, and so try to get as much of that property as you can and accumulate it. And if you invest in property, it's going to always be a good investment, unless it's like swampland in Florida or something. And so I try to teach my kids the same thing and give them that advice. You know, start looking early, start looking young. They have friends right now that, you know, are in their early 20s that are already like just got out of college and doing well enough to start looking at homes. And so they have some incentive there because their friends are doing it. But I definitely give them all the advice of that I wish that I had.
Well, is it like credit advice, savings advice, learning about debt to income? Like what?
Well, definitely
stuff?
debt to income. They don't have a ton of debt other than student loan debt right now, which is a tough one to get away from. But credit, you know, I think on the credit side, that is a key component, as you guys know, to buying your home, buying your first home, because you have no history at all with any mortgage company. You have no history with any bank. And if you have no real credit history at all, and you're young, then a bank has nothing to go off of to say you're credit worthy, or we want to take this risk on you. So
like, did you get them involved in credit stuff when they were like, you have teenagers?
Yep.
So are they authorized users on your credit cards, or are you doing anything like that?
Unfortunately, my son is, yes. And he seems to think that it's an unlimited supply, primarily of Chipotle. That's plugged to Chipotle, so if any gift cards would be great.
Yeah, my daughter is Starbucks, so.
But yeah. But we have this conversation all the time. You know, I've worked in the mortgage industry for a while now, you know, here at IDIQ, and like, they ask those questions, and they have no idea though. There's no education in our school systems that are talking about this sort of stuff. It's all these like random conversations that you have, and it's generally like, you want to do, you know, we live in this instant gratification world, so it's like, I want to buy a home. Okay, what do I do?
Like tomorrow?
There's no like lead into it. There's no anything. It's
no, how about today?
Exactly. Like, you know, when I left college, I had like a Wells Fargo student visa that had like a $500 limit on it, and that was like the only credit I'd ever had in my entire
I had
life.
the exact same thing.
And I wanted to buy a car. And so I bought a used car from this place up in the LA area. And I walk in there and they're like, you don't have any credit. So, I'd call my parents. I'm like, can you co-sign with me? And they're reluctantly like, yeah, I guess, co-sign. That's like how the process starts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. For me, the credit building experience was a gas card. I started with a gas card, and that kind of kicked off my credit building experience. And my wife and I had just gotten married, so we got a gas card, and we started using the gas card, and we started building our credit, and then we got approved for a very small personal loan, and so
Was that to fund the businesses that you were servicing?
No, we were in the military. We were in the military and we had no credit, and we realized that we needed to get some credit, and so we went and got this personal loan, and we bought like 2 mountain bikes with it, and we paid them off slowly. And then we just made sure and paid the payments on time, and we started building our credit that way. But
for me, it was like a small, tiny credit card. And then actually I think it was a Home Depot card that I had to get because there was a storm in our area and I was living with my parents. It was like right after I'd gotten home from college, and this storm blew the fence down, and my parents were out of town, which was very rare. They didn't travel much. They were small entrepreneurs. And so my brother and I had to go fix the fence. And so we had to go to Home Depot and buy the wood to fix the fence. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have enough money. So we applied for credit cards, and he got $100 more than me. And he will never let me live it down. He's a younger brother too. So it was a tough one, tough to take. But I went to school and I worked during the summers to help pay for school, but he worked the whole time. He just kept working. So he did better with his credit at a young age. For sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, he was killing it.
I only bought one mountain bike on credit. I did the same thing. Yeah. It was 2001, and I was like, really wanted this cool mountain bike, and I still have it.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
It still is in really good condition. But I bought it, and it was like the store was offering, like, do you want to buy this on credit? I'm like, sure, that'd be great. I don't have to pay for this right now. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, now they're all financed. All that stuff.
All right. So is there any takeaways that you guys think that you would suggest through your first home, in a first time home buyer situation? Like what's the one or two call outs that you guys would give somebody if they were asking you for some advice?
Go ahead, Rick.
Find somebody you can trust.
Yeah.
Like the realtor and the loan, the person helping you with the loan. I think that finding that person you can trust and you feel comfortable, because a lot of times you go into this process and you're going to like show them all your financial livelihood, yep. Right? And so you're going to show them like your deepest, darkest financial secrets. And so it's intimidating. You find somebody that you're comfortable having that conversation with, because then they can just be real with you and tell you like these are the things that you need to do and we can help you get there or whatever. But I think that finding that person you can trust, who not only knows their business, but you feel comfortable with sharing and working with, that I think that is the biggest key in the first round. And then being patient.
Yeah. Act like a 4-year-old.
Oh, that's good.
Why?
To ask
what
questions.
Is this?
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's got to be, just like Rick said, it's got to be somebody that's knowledgeable, but like, I wish I'd asked more questions the first time. It's like pride and ignorance when you're sitting there. Like, I was in the financial services world, and I'm like, well, I should probably know this. So I shouldn't ask this question. That looks stupid. If he doesn't think that I'm qualified to go buy this home or do these things, like, ask the questions. And if they don't know, find somebody that does. The answers are out there. Like, just ask. Like, be a 4-year-old.
Yeah, that's so good.
I think that's perfect.
One of the other things I think that's really important is, and I think this is so much easier said than done, but try to not be emotionally attached to the property. because then you start to make decisions where you'll take you think you might be able to make this payment when you really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And so you should be, there's got to be a way to find a way to let it go if it's not the right thing for you and your family.
Yeah. You have to understand that the real estate agent is there to sell you a home and the loan officer is there to make you a loan.
Right.
They're not there to make sure that you're going to be okay. And
Right.
so that's what your job is. And
they don't get paid until the loan closes
Exactly.
and the mortgage gets
funded.
and the home is sold.
Yeah.
so they're going to tell you that an extra $10,000 on top of your loan really in the grand scheme of things isn't that much. But to you, it may be a lot. So
Yeah.
you need to think about that and
Yeah.
look at it. And I love the patience comment because I think that's key. Like you get, especially when it's taking a long time for you to find your home, you get impatient. And so you start compromising.
Yeah.
And I think some compromises is okay, but figure out what your main goal is and kind of the things that are the handful of things that are the most important to you, and don't compromise on those.
Yeah.
No matter how long the process is taking, eventually something's going to come your way.
And if you have a partner you're doing it with, like try and make those decisions before you get out there.
Yeah.
Because if somebody one of the two of you decides that they like the place or decides they really want to sell a place, like you need to make those decisions before you get starry-eyed and start thinking, more emotionally. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. Don't make the decision based on emotion and walk away. Feel comfortable to walk away and say you need another minute to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow, that was a great episode. If you enjoyed this and want more, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on future topics. Follow us on all your favorite social platforms for bonus content and behind-the-scenes fun. Thanks for joining us on this journey towards financial empowerment. Until next time, stay tuned, stay savvy, and see you next time on IDIQ Labs.